So today I've got another brand new tool from Banggood. They have kindly sent this over for me to review. They haven't been paying me, so whatever I say in this review, you can rely that I'm not being told exactly what to say. So with that being said, we do have the router planer here. This is also known as a granny tooth, like a little tooth like that. Now unfortunately, router planes like this have gone a little bit out of fashion. They are replaced by the new modern sort of routers, which do make things a lot easier and a lot quicker. However, there is something to say about the old tools, and I'm really excited to put this one together and see exactly how it performs. Now this kit doesn't come with any instructions, so we will be learning as we go along, and we might make a few mistakes as we go as well. So straight out of the packaging, I can see that there is some damage to the anodized sort of finish. I suspect that's more sort of been rolled around in its packaging. It has come from China, so put that to one side. This is the cutting blade, or as I said, the granny tooth, and looking at it, that blade is going to need a serious sharpen. Well, it's not even straight for one, but there are some sort of nasty nicks in there as well, so that blade's definitely going to need some work doing to it. It does look like this can be taken out just by releasing this Allen screw in there, and then that can be slid out, so that might make sharpening that a lot easier. We've got two handles in here. I quite like the patterns on them. I think they'll make quite good sort of referencing, and it won't slip easily in the hand. We've got two of these steel bars here, and I presume that these are for a fence, which is this. So this is going to come in more as we go through the video, but you'd sort of reference this on the edge of your board, and then you can route up your groove. We also have these two pieces here. Now I don't know about you, but I am not too sure what these are yet. I think I'm going to have to have a look online and see what these are or how they work. So I'll put those to one side for the time being. And then lastly is your pack of screws. There's a spanner in there and a couple of Allen keys as well. So in actual fact, this router plane actually goes together really easily. So these pieces here, which I was a little bit unsure of what they were for, actually go on before the handle, and their main purpose is to give you a wider berth when using the router plane. So all I'm going to do is put it on the two extreme furthest parts of the router plane, and then using one of these machine screws, just tighten it down. And then once that's put in place, I can grab one of my red handles, and then this screws on over this thread, just like that. So you can see across the actual router sled there are additional holes, and these are for different mounting positions depending on the kind of work that you're going to be doing. And then just like that, both of the handles are in place, and then we can actually think about mounting the cutter itself. So again, there are two more holes here, and you can either put the handles in this position, or you can use one of them as your mounting position for your cutter. Now that's been put together, you can go ahead and use it exactly how it is. Alternatively, if you are looking to add a fence to this, the kit does come with one, and you use the fence along with these rods here. In the side of the router plane, again, there are more holes, and these are threaded. There's multiple locations on each of the sides, and again, it depends on the kind of work you're going to be doing or which way the cutter's facing. And all I'm going to do now is just insert these rods onto the side, and the rods do have a little flat section on them, and you can use them with a spanner just to make sure that they're nice and tight. The fence can then be put into place, and you have these really nice brass knurled handles which make it really nice and easy to secure it into place. And that is about it. That is the whole router plane set up and ready to start using. Now straight off the bat, I don't particularly like this fence. Personally, I think once you're pulling towards you, there is a chance that this can snag, and unless it's actually riding very cleanly along the side of your piece, it can cause you to sort of pull it out of position. I would much rather, in this case, cut 2 parallel lines in which I can then pull this router plane through to clean up the cut. Now, the overall router plane is a nice, stocky, a heavy piece as well, and it seems extremely well made. Everything is a very high durable aluminium, I believe, and the blade cutting system on this seems very robust and very high quality. Everything has knurled handles on them, and this just makes everything a lot easier to adjust. And having this brass knurled handle to adjust the actual cutter height means that it's nice and heavy and it's quite substantial. It's not going to move once you start cutting. So when looking at the router plane and the cutting system here, as I said, this is a nice heavy brass piece here, and this will adjust the height of the cutter. The further down you wind it, the further the blade protrudes into the wood or the material that you're cutting. You do have some more finger screws here, and they are for locking everything down so you don't have anything moving once you start cutting. Now, off camera, I did have to spend some time sharpening this blade purely because straight out the box it looked awful. The blade was very uneven and it wasn't sharp at all. So I spent a little time with one of the diamond sharpening blades, and within a very small amount of time it's cleaned up beautifully. So without further ado, let's get on and start using this. So I've been trying to think of ways that I can really showcase this router plane, and I think I've come up with a perfect solution. I'm actually making a postage sign for a client of mine, and the main sign is going to be incorporated into the 2 posts by a mortise and tenon. And I've already gone over on the table saw and cut parts of the tenon, but they are very rough, and I'm going to be using the router plane to clean up all of those cuts to make a nice clean tenon. So first of all, I'm going to set quite a shallow cut just so I don't take too much in my first pass, and I can set the depth by just loosening off this thumb screw and turning this nice brass nut at the top. And then all I'm going to do is just very gently cutting away the wood. I'm really happy with that. So all I'm going to do is loosen off that thumb screw again and just make a few turns, lower the cutter head, and as you'll see, I'm sort of putting all of my weight onto the left handle and then using that as like a pivot, so I can then easily chip away without sort of moving my left hand too much. All I'm doing is putting all my weight onto here and then just using it, the right hand, just to pivot around to make the cut. And then when that's all done at that depth, I can rinse and repeat really. Now, I'm not too sure how good this cut would have been hadn't I have sharpened this blade. It wasn't in a very good condition straight out the box, so that is something you do need to be mindful of. Obviously I did mine with a diamond stone, but you can use whatever you've got really. To sharpen it was very simple. I just made sure that the sole of the blade was nice and flat first of all, and then I could just reference or hold it at the angle or the cutting angle, and it was very, very simple. I'm getting very close to my finishing depth now, so I'm just going to be very mindful of that. Okay, so does work. However, it's extremely slow, and I am finding that it's lifting like the router plane up. So the further I'm going into the cut, it's no longer, it's a weird thing to say, it's no longer cutting, but it's rising, and it's sort of lifting the plane up. So I have to sort of go in on an outside edge and sort of push it back in, and it's just not very clean. I don't know whether that's because I haven't got a piece of wood on either side that I can reference this both on and push it down into the wood. I don't know whether it's because I'm just doing it one-sided, sort of using all the weight on one side. I'm going to clean up the other edges and get all these tenons ready. However, is it going to replace my router? Not at the moment. So it is going to be more for sort of the hobbyists who do love working with hand tools. And don't get me wrong, working with hand tools is absolutely fantastic. However, if you're trying to make a living out of it, it's not always going to be the best. So I'm going to crack on with this one and see if I get any better. So as you'll see, I cheated a little bit. I did go full depth on this, on the rest of the cuts. It actually cleared out a lot better. I didn't find that it was raising as much. However, I still didn't feel that I was getting a great finish. And ultimately, the finishes on the tenons don't have to be perfect. In actual fact, I like to leave them a little bit furry, and so you got a little bit more glue surface area as well. However, I did go over with my shoulder plane just to clean them up, just to make them look a little bit better, and this worked extremely well. But then that is exactly what it's used for. This is more if you're making cabinets or anything like that, where you cut out a groove and then you use this to bottom out that groove. Now alternatively, as I said, this router plane does have multiple mounting positions, so to change them is very simple. Just unscrew one of the handles and then pop it in a new location. So for example, I'm going to place it in the middle, just like so. Tighten it down, and with the other handle I'm just going to pop it on the alternate side, just like this. And then depending on where I'm actually going to be using this tool, and this could be very close to an upper rail or in a cabinet maybe, and the space doesn't allow for the wider sort of handles, I can put it in this orientation, and then I can place the blade on either end. And then just as quickly as that, I've now got a very thin router plane that I can use within cabinets or in tight spaces where the space doesn't allow me to use the router plane in this orientation. And being able to do this, I think, definitely sets it apart from the older Stanley or my old record router plane. So we come to that part in the video where it comes down to actually, would I buy this tool? Ultimately, in my workshop, no. I personally wouldn't buy this tool, purely because time is money, and ultimately using tools like this is quite slow. I don't get the same kind of finish that I do if I use my Trend palm router, especially when using carbide bits as well. The quality that I get from a router far exceeds what I would with one of these router planes. Now that's not to say that these don't belong in a workshop. I think they do to some extent. There are going to be cases or projects where something like this does come in incredibly useful. However, for me personally, I don't think I'm actually going to be using this as much as what, say, a weekend woodworker or someone who has a real hobby of woodworking may. I think someone who has a hobby in woodworking would spend a lot more time using hand tools because they actually love the feel of the wood and just getting more hands-on with older hand tools. And I think this is where this router plane actually belongs. The cut-in that I was getting from the actual router plane was quite good. I mean, I did spend a little bit of time sharpening this blade because out of the box, as I said, it wasn't the greatest. However, I think for someone who really loves their old tools and working with hand planes especially, something like this would be incredibly useful. And for the price of one of these, I think it is very cost effective for even the hobbyist to get into. And talking about that, if you would like to pick up or purchase one of these router planes for yourself, I'm going to leave a link down in the description of where you can buy one for yourself. Now again, this is an affiliate link, so if you do go on and purchase anything through this link, I do get a small commission, and that helps in running of my business and the workshop. And if you'd like to support me even further, I do have a Patreon account, and I'll leave all the links down below of where you can become a member for that as well. I would like to thank Banggood for sending me over this tool. I have had a lot of fun getting to know it and using it for this video. And I hope one day I'll end up picking up this tool to start using on a project. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please do consider subscribing for more videos like this. And if you haven't already, please do consider clicking that thumbs up button. And until the next time, I'll see you again soon.